Ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas. I was trying to think of some Christmas Vacation line, from Chevy Chase. Trying to keep PG.
We did watch Elf the other day.
Oh, nice. That's a classic.
Yeah. I love how it became a classic so quickly. I can't wear a mask all through the show. I wear it during work.
No,
It's enough already. I just want to be somewhat festive for whatever. I have a bunch of different Christmas ones. I have one with like a beard that has like Christmas decorations in it. Gotcha. And then I have like a snowman one. So those are fun. But
yeah. Well, welcome. Yeah. Welcome to our second bonus episode of this Christmas season. We hope you're having a good lead up to Christmas. We are here today discussing The Man in the High Castle, Amazon's TV series that came out several years back actually by now.
It ended 2 years ago.
Ended 2 years ago, yeah.
Yeah, it's 2019. It's 2021 now.
Yeah, so not that long ago. Yeah. Still got my tree there in the background. Got my still got Dunder Mifflin, but it's red. It's kind of ties in festive. So I'm gonna jump right into this. We're discussing. This is The Man in the High Castle today. A brief synopsis for everyone out there. This takes place in an alternate history where the Allies have lost World War II and America is controlled by Nazi Germany in the East and Imperial Japan in the West. A young woman discovers a mysterious film that may hold the key to reversing history. So this is obviously like an alternate history type series, and the alternate history is something I actually am very fascinated by. I love any movies or shows that deal with alternate history. It's why to this day Tarantino's Inglourious Basterds is still, I think, my favorite of his. That's one of the reasons. I love anything that deals with alternate history or alternate dimensions, alternate realities, stuff like Stranger Things. So this movie or this show really kind of hit all of those for me. So that's why I was intrigued by this. Because it's something that's right down my alley. And I'm a World War II enthusiast. So that just on top of that, it ties everything in nicely there. You get nice
enthusiast. You're enthused about World War II?
Enthused, yeah. I always feel weird saying that. I like diving into the history of World War II. I don't like the events that happened, obviously, but I like researching and
I've just never really. I mean, because I'm a history buff with that era as well, so I read a lot of stuff, and I mean, I've probably read the most disturbing book I've ever read on that recently, and I think I've talked about it on other shows already, actually, but yeah, so it's a hard part to talk about because there's so many odd things about that time, and it's not that long ago, like my grandfather fought in that war.
Wow.
So it's just this weird I mean, I never met him. He died before I was born, but it's still the fact of like two generations ago. Like I could it's crazy to me.
Yeah. This is a series that, like we were saying earlier, it combines like history and sci-fi, and it melds a couple different genres there. So it's interesting, and it's based on the book by Philip K. Dick, which I think in school
very loosely based.
Loose,
but yeah,
okay, loose. Yeah, I wasn't really. I think the book itself is also called The Man in the High Castle.
It's in The Man in the High Castle. The book, they're spreading books about alternate history, not films. So there's that is a difference. The Nazis have colonized Mars and Venus in that one because apparently it was so easy to do, which obviously we know now that would just be unrealistic. Even
a little bit, yeah.
They do have some more advanced technology, but that's more based on like the German engineering, which if they did keep pushing forward, yeah, there would be certain things that were better, possibly, but also the way they get those things is just absolutely terrible, you know? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I just, this show, it makes you wonder, it makes you think. I was just, I remember watching the first episode and being really disturbed by.
It's unsettling.
Like, yeah, well, I remember the thing that really made me disturbed was when Joe Blake's character stops in this small town on his drive to the neutral zone, and he's like, "What's all this ash?" And he goes, "Oh, well, it's, they do this every Wednesday at the old folks home or something like that, And I'm just like, holy shit, like that's disturbing, oh my God.
Right.
But yeah, so it's just like this idea that at least in the Nazi side of it, you don't see any sick people. You don't see any handicapped people. You don't see any people of color at all.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't reveal what happened to any of them until season 2, although I didn't feel like they needed to reveal anything about that. It was kind of like, no, you knew.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You knew what happened because we knew the actual history of that country. And the more I learn about the history of that country, of Germany, and things that the Nazis were doing as they were conquering countries, I mean, it's absolutely crazy. We act as if, this show isn't as far off as we wish it would be. Honestly, obviously it didn't happen.
Yeah.
But they took over France.
Mm-hmm.
They literally rolled into France and owned Paris. The Nazis did. They had it. It was in their possession. They were about to take over England and the UK. They were on the verge. And if it weren't for, and I'm not going to just say like American pride or anything like that. It's not just like, America. We act as if, America entered the war.
We swooped in and saved the day.
We just swooped in and saved the day. It was a crazy uphill battle because the Japanese people really did cripple the one strength that America had on everybody, and that was our Navy.
Mm-hmm.
And they also, like, leading up to World War II, we were in a period of demilitarization. We were dialing down all of our weapons, all of our military. We were in a era where people were saying, it's just not necessary. They were claiming that, to be peaceful, you have to get rid of your arms, get rid of your weapons, be the weakest. And it's just like, no, because that almost ruined the world.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just this, like, people don't realize what was actually, at least now I feel like a lot of people don't realize why it was such an uphill battle and why it made such a big deal that everyone in America was pretty much focused on doing their part for the war effort, because we had turned our swords into plowshares and we had to pound them all back into shape, because we were weak. They took out a lot of our battleships in that Pearl Harbor attack.
Mm-hmm.
So we ended up relying on aircraft carriers, and now that's normal. No, aircraft carriers are the bomb, and the fact that we have more of them than any other country. Did you know there's only 42 of those things in existence?
I did not.
And America has 13 of them.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and pretty much the rest of them are spread out in numbers of like 1 and 2 here and there for other countries. But yeah, America, so these are a piece of technology that we had 3 of at the time, and they weren't like considered the end all be all, but we turned them into that and used them for that aspect. It's just this crazy thing that we don't like. We could have lost that war. This history could have happened, if they had nuked us before we nuked them. That's literally what happens in the show.
Yeah.
Is they nuke Washington, D.C.
Right.
That's how you end up with the Nazis taking over is they nuked Washington, D.C., and pretty much from there on out, it ended up being America stepping down and surrendering.
Yeah.
And you slowly learn this throughout the show. They don't show you everything right away. So I like the mystery, the unfolding of that part.
Right.
The alternate timelines and skipping into the thing that really makes it sci-fi is very interesting because they kind of like visit the other world, but they don't explain how. Mm-hmm. They never go into that, which I like.
Yeah.
I like when they don't bother explaining things because it takes away from it when they explain too much, because then you can have some nerd on the internet like me being like, oh, well, that's going to happen because X, Y, and Z, or the science behind that isn't actually how that works, some nonsense like that. So they don't really bother explaining it, which is awesome. So yeah, I don't even know where to go with this show. But it's amazing. I wasn't happy with the ending.
Yeah.
But it was very interesting, kept my attention, and I really wanted to see more and more of it. And every time they did something with the characters, I never really got pissed with how they handled any of the characters. When a character died, I wasn't like, oh my God, how could they do that? I mean, some of them were shocking,
right?
But it was also the thing of like, wow, okay, so that happened. There was never a time. It's not like there's other shows like The Walking Dead and Game of Thrones are really big. They're what I called killers, where nobody in this show is safe. Anybody can die, but it's to such a degree where you don't care anymore. So when a character dies in the show, you still care. Even when it's a villain, even when it's a bad guy, you're sitting there being like, oh my God, they just killed Joe, oh my God, they just, like it's just, they do it so well. They have you caring about, not necessarily caring, not sympathizing with the bad guys, but they have you wanting to know what happens to them.
Yes, definitely. And kind of going along with that, like I found myself like Juliana is obviously like one of the vital characters to the show, but I found myself more intrigued, honestly, with John Smith's character because of like the moral complexity surrounding him and his character arc in itself, where he starts, where he goes towards the middle, then how he ends. It's just following that whole journey and the complexity with his son, how that arises and how that complicates things for him and unravels his life was very, very interesting. Any scene with him and the actor, I'm drawing a blank on his name, but he gave a great performance. He was fantastic.
Rufus Sewell?
Yes. Yeah, that
Rufus
sounds right.
Sewell? I'm not sure how to pronounce the last name.
Yeah, he was fantastic in it. Yeah, I was really, because he was torn kind of psychologically between his loyalties to the Reich and protecting his son and family. And he was also someone who we learned a bit of the background from. He was an American who, once the Allies lost the war, he basically gave his loyalty to the Reich to kind of essentially protect his family, and so he always has that in the back of his mind, that this is something that he was basically forcibly went into. And
that's kind of the book I recently read it's called Ordinary Men, and it's about these police units that Germany used to enforce their stuff, enforce their ideology, where they took police officers from Germany and Poland and countries that they were taking over, and they had them hunting down and killing Jews. It's literally about these normal guys, these ordinary run-of-the-mill guys. The guys, and the thing it points out is that these were the men who didn't join up with the military. They didn't join up with the SS. They weren't part of the Nazi party. These guys were essentially policemen because they were trying to stay away from all that stuff. And yet they still ended up committing these atrocities and hunting down Jews and hunting down Polish people and gypsies and just wiping people out. And it's just absolutely, and actually, like, because there's a couple characters in the show who are real life people. Himmler is one of them. And
obviously Hitler.
Hitler. There's another guy he's in the first season, I think. But one of these guys was actually like killed in 1942 by an ambush, and they, I think it's Heydrich.
Heydrich. Okay, yeah, his last name was Heydrich.
He was actually killed. I think he was killed in 1942, and actually, I read and that story was included in the book I read, where he was killed, and as retaliation for his killing, they went into a town and they had to kill 200 people. They sent this police unit in to kill 200 people as retaliation for his death. And it's just like, ooh, so the rebels killed this one high-ranking officer, which is like essentially like the rank that what's his name has at the beginning is like Obergruppenführer or something like that.
Yeah, Obergruppenführer, I believe.
Yeah, so that's his rank. It's essentially like a 3-star general or admiral or something in our American terms of things. So he's high up to begin with, so he's not a little nobody, but his story is just crazy because, like you said, he was American and
he had to make this huge decision of, do I take up, do I join the Nazis or do I risk the lives of my, because I'm sure they were going to kill them if they didn't join up. I mean,
I love and you don't see it till the 4th season. That's why the show is so good, because they spread the story out.
Yeah.
So it has a slow burn aspect to it. And so the guys that their general or commanding officer or whatever comes to them and he brings them food. And he's like, oh, this is from, the Reich, and they're providing food for us. And all you have to do is sign up. And he puts down the 3 Nazi badges for the 3 guys there. And 2 of them, he's like, just put them on. It's just a piece of cloth, So 2 of them grab it. And then the 3rd guy's like, no, we can't do this. This is wrong. And they're like, come on, we'll just hide out, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, and then that's when the guy reveals he's Jewish. Mm-hmm. He can't do it, and it just creates this aspect of the character. It's just like mind boggling of like, what would you do in that situation?
Yeah.
We all, and this is where I love and hate this aspect about history, because we all like to look at history through this lens of, oh, I would have been anti-slavery, or I would have been against the Nazis if I was in Germany. And it's like, I don't know if you would have.
It's easy to say now.
It's easy to say from this side of the history.
Yeah.
But when you're actually in the situation, when your entire culture, and that's what they cover in that book I was telling you about, when it's in your culture that this is the right thing to do.
Yeah. And
they thought it was the right thing to do to wipe out these Jewish people because they were a scourge on society. They thought it was the right thing to do to kill the mentally handicapped and to kill old, frail people. They thought it was the right thing to do because they were a drain on resources. The culture taught them that, and they were okay with that. Like, that's insane to think about where they were. And it's insane to me to think that, oh, yeah, I'm not going to be influenced by my culture at all. That's not how it works. You don't get to be that separate from it.
Right.
You don't get to, you're in it. You're part of it. So where would you actually be on things? How are the issues presented to you, and what are your past experiences?
Yeah.
And that's why I sit here looking at what we got now, where we've been dealing with, bring it into today, where we're dealing with mask mandates, vaccine mandates, things like that. And I can see both sides of it. I can understand the idea of like, oh, well, I'm getting the shot because I'm not selfish. I want to take care of other people. But I can also see the other side where it's like, you give the government an inch, they're going to take a mile. You let them mandate these things. I remember saying back in mid 2020, like June or something like that. I was telling my wife, I'm like, this has been a marketing nightmare. It's a PR nightmare, the way they've been handling this stuff. I don't know who was like, from our governor here, Wolf, to up to the presidency, the people who have been handling these things were just terrible because they treated us like children. They lied to us openly and then admitted later on that they did lie to us about stuff like the masks and how they told us not to wear masks for the first like 2 months of this thing. And then they started requiring masks everywhere and then told people that, well, we just told you not to wear them before, but not because they weren't effective, but because we didn't want you to ruin the supply chain for the medical facilities. And it's like, why didn't you just say that in the first place? If you had literally just said that to the first place, hey, look, masks would probably help you, but here's the reality, guys. We need these for the supply chain to stay strong because we're staying back. Treat people like adults. Talk to them like adults and tell them the truth about what's going on. And I think you'd be surprised how well people would actually handle it. Mm-hmm. But when you start lying to them, that's when you've now made it easy for someone else to get a wedge in there and divide people and say, nope, I'm not trusting them anymore. I don't care how many things they say. You know, they told us 2 weeks to kill the curve. And then it ended up being months and months of this lockdown stuff. And then they just kept telling us, oh, after Christmas time, oh, after we reach a certain level of people who get vaccine, once the vaccine's out, the mask mandates can end. Oh, nope, you still have the masks because not enough people are getting vaccinated, or the vaccine is actually only 30% effective, not 90% effective like we thought it would be. You know, there's all this stuff that's literally like, and some people are just, they're getting a certain amount of information and they're refusing to go further with it. So they're just being like, I'm done because I don't want to fight about it anymore. So people are tired, people are worn out, and it's getting nasty out there.
Yeah, it's been a nightmare.
There's people attacking people physically over masks. There's people stabbing people, shooting people over this crap. It is just nonsense. It is awful. It is terrible. Because we've been pushed to our brink. So to bring that back to this show, I hate to think that maybe the people who were doing these Nazi atrocities were pushed into it with a form of mind control where they were just like, not mind control, but eventually they were just taught it was okay. So they went with it. And that's where we're at with certain aspects of our culture. We're being taught to villainize people for having different opinions. And that's just crazy.
Yeah. It's, and going back a little bit to what you were saying earlier about these people that you wouldn't ever think would do these kinds of things, it kind of ties in with what we talked about with The Dark Knight way back in our season finale, with when you put someone into a box and you kind of, attack them where you put their family in jeopardy, or you put someone who they really, really love in jeopardy, what they're willing to do to protect them. It's scary. And just one of the many, great aspects of this show is that it's very complex in that way. There's just, it's unnerving. It's unsettling, like you were saying, and disturbing. And just, it's what kind of, at the same time, it's what makes it so intriguing, I think. But going back, going back a little bit to just some different aspects of the show that I like, is the fact that it also focuses on the tension between the Nazis and Imperial Japan, the tension between them, the impending war, the fact that the Nazis want to go to war with Japan, but Japan doesn't have access to nuclear weapons, so they're not prepared to go to war with the Nazi regime. And they meld in like a lot of just betrayals. There's undercover agents, double agents that kind of show up here and there. So it really keeps you guessing in that way. There's just a lot of surprises throughout the seasons, and just really, keeps you on your toes. And just a lot of good surprises mixed in here. And for the most part, I feel like it's a pretty evenly paced story. Pretty evenly paced story in a series that really, in my opinion, definitely did not overstay its welcome. In fact, I think it could have benefited from a few more episodes to explain its ending a little more.
I think one more season would have helped them out. I feel like the series finale was rushed.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think they were actually planning to shut down. I've tried to find out if they were canceled suddenly, and they weren't.
They weren't. So, and from what I found out is that from the beginning, they had the ending in mind. That's what I read. Like, they had everything planned out. They had everything in mind, what they wanted to do, and they wanted to leave it ambiguous from everything that I was researching and seeing. Because apparently
they wanted to leave it ambiguous, but I don't know if they wanted to leave it as quickly. I mean, I don't know if season 4 was all they had in mind, you know?
Yeah.
I really feel like after the train crash in season 4, the last episode actually, there could have been another whole season in there. Okay, you could have had another whole season of the rebels in control of the portal, of the Nazis trying to take back that stuff, of him, of John Smith becoming even more unhinged now that his wife is dead.
Yeah.
You know, things like that, where it could have made for an interesting story, especially like, okay, so Japan has pulled back now. What do we do here? You know, how is it actually going to be with the Nazis in control of one half and the other people?
Yeah.
And what was it? The Black Communist Party in charge of the other half of the United States, and Japan no longer in charge of any of it. I don't know. I think they could have done one more season to fill things out, to give us a little bit more of a satisfying ending. I think personally, the way they ended it just felt a little heavy-handed and too happy. I was getting ready for them to just lose. And I would have been satisfied with that ending more than the ending we got. Like, if they tried to take over and the rebels were just crushed.
Yeah.
And then the Nazis just bombed the heck out of San Francisco and the other cities, I think I would have been a little more satisfied with that ending, because I felt like it would have been more true to the show than the almost super happy ending that we got here. You know, like, I almost expected when the portal opens and a bunch of people start coming through, I almost expected it to be more Nazis and to just mow them down. You know, like, I just felt like it was I just felt like it wasn't really true to the show. Okay. Like, I feel, and that's just my opinion on it. I feel like there should have been, I feel like the struggle to get to where they were felt cheap in the end. Like, it didn't feel like much of a struggle. Yeah. You know, they didn't show them striving as much in those last episodes as they would have had they had another season to do it.
Yeah, if it just left you wanting more, but not in a good way. Like, there's some shows that end with, okay, yeah, it makes you kind of want more, but in this case, it's more of, this doesn't feel complete. It feels there's too many questions that go unanswered. Who are these people coming through the portal? Is this all? I was even looking around, like, is this meant to be completely symbolic? Is it actually happening, or is it just a vision?
Yeah, I was looking for like Frank and Joe, and like, oh, here's the good versions of these people being restored to your world, like something cheesy like that, with the way they were, like, they were just all pouring through. You know, I was like, wait, what is this really happening? And yeah, I don't know, it didn't.
Then we have Hawthorne, the man in the High Castle, going into the portal at the end.
Which, it was literally so forgettable that he did that you and I didn't remember it.
I didn't.
I read about it before the show, and we literally went back and before we started filming and rewatched that last couple minutes, because I didn't remember him going into the portal, because it was just that unforgettable of an end. That was forgettable of an ending. Yeah. I mean, I like the way they dealt with Himmler at the end there. You know, with Smith, like, smothering him and taking up his position as being like, no, I'm king of America, basically. And then his other buddy there can have all the German side of the Reich and everything. So it was like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. That would work. Yeah. I wish we had seen more of Lem in the later seasons. Like, he's part of, like, the show a lot in the first couple seasons, and then he just shows up for, like, the last 2 episodes and brings more soldiers in for the Black Communist Party, you know, and a lot of the soldiers he's bringing in are ex-Nazis. Yeah, I don't know. They just like, there were a lot of characters that were just kind of left, like dropped, Ed just kind of disappears.
He disappears. Yeah.
I hated that they killed Tagami off screen. Like, I understand the actor had some other thing or something that he had to do, maybe? I forget what it was. Or did he pass? No, he's still alive.
Yeah, I think he's still alive.
Yeah, so it was like Cary Tagawa. He's a fantastic actor to begin with.
Yeah, this is a great cast.
Really solid cast. I did have trouble with it at the beginning, though, because they kept saying the ages of the actor of the characters and being like, "Oh, Julia, I'm only 23," and it's like, "No, girl, you clearly look 30." And the actress was in her 30s. Like, I think she's in her 40s now.
Yeah.
It was one of those things where it's like, why didn't they just make the actor older, like the character older? You know what I mean? There's no reason. Yeah, she's older than me. Like,
yeah, she did not look 23.
She never looked like in her early 20s in the show at all. So it was just this weird thing that they did. I'm just like, guys, come on, let's just let people be 30. Why is 20? I mean, no offense, because I know you're in your 20s.
Right.
It's one of the most uninteresting decades because it's literally the decade where you're expected to be an adult, but you don't know how yet, so you screw everything up. That's kind of my view of the 20s. It's supposed to be your mistake decade. You've gone through your full education. They've handed you a degree. They said, hey, you're an adult. Go out into the world. And then you stumble and fall on your face a dozen times until you get to your 30s and start realizing, okay, these are the lessons I've learned from this. This is how, okay, maybe I shouldn't stay out all night before I have to make a presentation the next day. You know,
stuff like that.
Stuff like that, where it's like, come on. Like, I just think it's just the obsession with the youth in the 20s in Hollywood has just always been bizarre to me because, the characters that they're portraying, like Bourne Identity, that character is in his 40s or 50s in the book. Jason Bourne is a 40 or 50-year-old man in the books. He is not a 20-something brand new soldier. He's like a retired guy, So it's like the characters in books are much more interesting than they are because they've actually had lives.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, I will say this, like, as far as other technical aspects of this series, I love the production design is solid. It's a very immersive world that they created here. Like, it feels immersive. It feels real. It feels like plausible. So that's something that drew me in immediately. I was like, okay, yeah, I believe this. This is it just felt real. It felt raw.
I love that the capital cities aren't what we had as capital cities or what we would think would be capital cities. They have San Francisco as a capital on the Japanese side. They have, and they have this interesting thing because they've developed, like, it takes place in the 60s, right? Like 62?
Yes, it actually takes place. Yeah, I believe
so. It's like 62 to 65 or somewhere in there. And the weird thing about it is that it looks more like the 50s.
Yeah.
Like early 50s too. And it kind of plays into that whole like cultural stagnation. Like, sure, things advanced under the Nazi Reich still, but not quite as well as they would have under a freer society, And then they also have, and then Berlin. Berlin, I didn't know this. I had to read this. Berlin doesn't look anything like the real Berlin because it's basically Hitler's ideal. Dream. Yeah, Hitler's dream Berlin is what they have showing in the show. And I didn't know that. I just thought, oh, that's what Berlin looks like.
Yeah. No, that was actually what he wanted to do. He wanted to rebuild it. I learned that too. But yeah, what you said really drew into what a little bit of trivia that I had was that they did extensive research on like the cultures. They did a lot of work into like the costuming, technology, music, because they wanted to develop an alternate world where it merged aspects of the World War II and Nazi and Japanese cultures with the 1950s America. It's it was just a very well developed world. Like it just the series it was a very well done series. The ending, where we both said not a huge fan of, it could have benefited from several more episodes, if not a whole season more. I feel like they stumbled a bit towards the end, but for the most part, it's a solid series, and I can understand.
I think just one season more, maybe one more season. I don't think it really needed that much more to it, but it needed something more. I would have been. Even Robert Chilton just kind of gets dropped there. The last you see of him, he's in the Yakuza. I don't know what to call it, the bar or whatever, making the deal to get himself to Japan to find his wife, and that's the last you see of him. Like they give him his ticket and he leaves. That's the last. So wait, did they actually let him on the boat this time? Because he had a ticket the last time too. Did they let him on this time?
Right.
They didn't bother showing him when Kito's kid was on the getting on the same boat. They didn't show him in the background, or maybe they did and I missed it. But I feel like there could have been something more done with him, so we knew whether or not he made it to his wife, or the struggle he went through to get there. I just feel like there was so much. I was surprised that character lasted so long, because every time he came back, it was kind of like, why is he here again? And yet it worked with the show, with the story. It worked. I would have loved to see the older daughter, Smith's older daughter, actually resisting him, especially after the mom died. There could have been more there.
Yes, absolutely.
More character development. We could have actually, because the fight she has with her mom in that second to last episode, it's heartbreaking. She's talking about, he was my brother too, he was and you see the younger sister completely indoctrinated in it, and it's terrifying.
The complete polar opposites, the sisters, and
So, and then who was it? J. Edgar Hoover. They had J. Edgar Hoover being completely for everything the Nazis were doing, which I'm just chills, because it's that's the founder of the FBI. This guy, I saw the Leonardo DiCaprio movie about him recently, and it's dude, this guy is actually we got some twisted stuff going on in our country for years now, for decades now, and we are not the freedom haven that we like to think we are. And I just, it so bothers me, and I just feel like it's even getting worse now, and it's crazy. I mean, I don't want to keep hammering home on the current issues, but I mean, it's there. Stuff is happening, and how does democracy actually end? Slowly but surely. And I understand there's a pandemic. I understand people are getting sick and dying, but I feel like this can be handled differently, and governments are all just showing the totalitarian sides and just taking advantage of. We're learning more and more about this thing, that it's pretty much just a normal virus. It's a virus that's never going to go away. It can't go away because it's in more than humans. Animals get this virus and it can mutate in them and then come back to us. You can't get rid of a coronavirus.
It's not like coming out
it's not like measles and mumps and things like that were only in humans. So if you get rid of it in humans, it's gone. It's completely different. Or it's the same as every other coronavirus. And if they had just, they're talking about how Australia and China have done so well with this, and yet they haven't let their people be affected by it. So what's going to happen when they finally do let their people be affected by it? Their numbers are low because they've clamped down on people. Have you seen this is so opposite of where I wanted the show to go, but it's there. There's this political stuff going on. They're beating people into the ground in Australia.
I have not even heard that.
Yeah. Beating them up for not wearing a mask in public outside. It's just, and they have checkpoints set up because you're not allowed to be more than 25 miles away from your house or kilometers, whatever it is in their country. So it's just like crazy
Yeah.
to think about that type of stuff. I drive more than that to work. I drive more than 20 that to work every day.
Yeah. Laura and I were just talking today. Apparently, I didn't even hear this, but Southwest Airlines, some pilots are striking right now against Southwest because they're requiring vaccines for commercial pilots for Southwest. And so some pilots are striking now. So that's becoming an issue for Southwest. They're canceling a bunch of flights because who's going to fly the planes?
I saw a little blurb about that. I didn't read it, but
yeah,
I don't know. It's insane to see. Like this show, the actors talked about the totalitarian things that were going on under Donald Trump and that was their inspiration for making the show, except the fact that every single time that Trump actually had an opportunity to be totalitarian, he didn't take it. Like he had multiple opportunities to just clamp down on things and never really did it. Like the virus would have been the perfect opportunity for him to just slam down on all the states and be like, this is how we're doing things now. And you know what? They would have applauded him for it. And he didn't do it because I honestly, I don't want the man back as president. I don't. I didn't like the man personally. I was pleasantly surprised by some of the things he did, but I don't want him back. Yeah. But now that he's gone, it's like, holy hell, we're dealing with a dementia patient as our new president. Like, this guy is insane. This guy doesn't know what's going on. Yeah, it's so sad. I can't see how anybody can look at Biden and be like, oh, yes, this is the best thing that should be happening right now. Sorry, that's showing my political colors, but it's there.
Yeah. The fact that he forgets people's names, can barely speak coherently many times. The
thing that gets me is when he suddenly flashes and starts talking about stuff from decades ago as if it's now. That's the thing. It's like I've seen this several times, and I've dealt with dementia patients before. Yeah. And it's just like, this is what this is, guys. He has clearly got an issue. This isn't right. Like, they shouldn't be putting him up like this. And some people will go straight to the argument that that's what they did with Reagan. I don't know. I was a kid back then. If that's what they did with Reagan, it was wrong then too. Just because somebody else did a wrong thing doesn't mean someone else should do a wrong thing or the other side should do the wrong thing.
Yeah.
It's like people like with the Patriot Act and like, oh, well, Obama continued the Patriot Act and Trump continued the Patriot Act. It's like, yeah, it was wrong when Bush started doing it too. So maybe none of them were right about this aspect of life. I don't know. But I don't know. This is a weird episode. It's just not as cheery. We're talking about Nazis. It's never cheery. Right. It never gets to be cheery when you're talking about Nazis. Is that your phone or mine?
That was mine. Sorry.
Oh, it's all good. But yeah, you don't get to be cheery when you're talking about Nazis. It's like when we did, what was it, Jojo Rabbit. Like, you don't get to be cheery when you talk about that subject. It doesn't happen.
This is top subject matter. Yeah.
But this show handles it well. I think they handle it. I think they do a great aspect of showing the reality of what could have been, and also the fact that how propaganda has an effect on people. They show that real well in the show because they see these videos of, and the thing is, it ends up being true. Like, Joe Blake does end up actually being a Nazi, but the fact that he was their friend, and then they saw a video of him being a Nazi, and they suddenly didn't trust him. They were suddenly like, "Oh no, we can't trust you anymore because we saw what's essentially a fake propaganda film for as best as they could tell." That saying that guy was a Nazi, and they suddenly could not trust him and could not take his word on anything. It did turn out to be true.
Yeah.
But it may not have been. And there were points where we didn't know where the character was going. We didn't know where his loyalties actually lied. And at that point, we didn't know where they lied, and it ended up becoming more confirmed later on when his dad ended up being a higher up and he pushed forward into that. But so many spoilers. Hope no one thought this was going to be spoiler free.
I was going to say, yeah, this was definitely a spoiler review. We hope. I mean, at this point, if you're familiar with our show, you know this is definitely a spoiler zone. So, yeah. But yeah, that's the Man in the High Castle. Not one of our more cheery, uplifting episodes, but I mean, this is again tough subject matter. But I think stuff that's important still to discuss. Not everything has to be super in the clouds, rainbow, sunshine and rainbows. You know, so I still enjoy getting into the tougher details and discussing all of this. So, but
great characters, great story.
Yeah, great characters, great story, lots of tension and suspense, political material, moral complexity, great performances. It's just a very well-rounded show, and you can't say that just about every show. Amazon did a great job here.
But you can probably say it about next week's show too.
Yes, because next week we have a much more cheerful episode for you, guaranteed. It will be The Office. It'll be coming out on Christmas Day. So
no,
what? I thought we had.
Next week Christmas we're Day. Doing Breaking Bad.
Breaking Bad. Oh, then The Office. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought we had The Office. I had in my list. I had The Office on Christmas Day. Okay.
Yeah, The Office is on Christmas Day. This is
because we did Firefly last week. Week.
Firefly will be the 4th. This will be the 11th. Breaking Bad will be the 18th, and then
okay. Gotcha. Yeah, I had
The Office on Christmas Day.
Sorry, next week won't be as the most uplifting. Never mind.
That's what I was saying. What I was saying is like, oh yeah, next week you can say all the same things about it. It'll be morally ambiguous and not necessarily uplifting either, but it'll be a little more cheery than this because there's no Nazis involved.
Exactly, no Nazis.
So there's some much better moments of levity in that show because you're not dealing with Nazis.
Yeah. But we'll cap it all off with The Office, revisiting The Office right on Christmas there. And we did record an episode of The Office for our bonus. I think we'll plan to release that also, but we kind of want to revisit it because that was before we started filming our episodes. So, and there's just so much you can talk about, honestly, with the show. And
we could fill a season or 2 or 3 or 9 talking about The Office.
Yeah,
and that's video you sent me the other day about Steve Carell. I had seen that before, but
I wasn't sure. Yeah,
that was disappointing.
Yeah, his whole exit has
forever changed in my mind. Mm-hmm. But so this was Man in the High Castle. We hope you enjoyed the episode, and that we'll see you next week.
Yeah,
Merry Christmas and stay warm.
Stay warm.